Hey, Salmon Skins, and welcome to another episode of Straight White Man Talks About Stuff. Yes, there's not enough of these podcasts out where straight white men give everyone their hot takes on hot cakes. That's right, I'm going through my list of favourite cakes. Fresh out of the oven, it's Madeira. Let's have a taste of it. Yep, that's a pretty good cake. And that's my hot take on a hot cake. Salmon of knowledge, just a salmon of knowledge, just a salmon of knowledge, just a salmon of knowledge, salmon of knowledge, salmon of knowledge podcast. What do we do, baby, without us? And there ain't no loving, we can love each other through. What do we do, baby, without us? Sha-la-la-la. That was my version of the Family Ties theme tune, which is a very hard thing to say if you are originally from the Midlands, where I'm from, because there's a lot of T's there and THs. Because Family Ties theme tune is how I would normally say it if I hadn't trained myself to speak normal. Now, I'm not saying that everyone from Offaly and the surrounding Midland areas don't speak well or good or proper, but there, I said it. It's the THs. Dis, dat, dem, der, these, dem, those. That's where the motherfucking TH goes. And immediately, this episode is explicit. I was thinking about eventually doing a non-explicit episode, you know, for kids. But, I mean, kids hear language, and also, it's not the language, it's the subjects you're talking about. And, you know, no kid is going to be in a car or in a cafe or, you know, in the room while their parent or uncle or aunt or friend of the family is listening to a podcast and they go, wait, what's he talking about? Family Ties, the 1980s comedy. I love that show because kids these days are all into retro stuff. And what was cool for their parents and older relations is now cool for them. Now, I was a huge fan of Family Ties. If people don't, maybe I should explain what Family Ties is. Family Ties was a sitcom that ran in the 1980s, in the mid-1980s, and was kind of unique in a way. Now, I didn't realize it at the time, but it made a star out of Michael J. Fox. Family Ties ran from 1982 to 1989. So there are 176 episodes on the NBC network. The thing about Family Ties was that it was set in the 80s in America, in the Reagan-era America. And that was a very important factor in the show because Michael J. Fox's character in it, Alex P. Keaton, was this absolutely Republican conservative kid who loved Ronald Reagan. Well, Alex P. Keaton, you're a big fan of me. I'm Mr. Burns doing an impression of Ronald Reagan. Well, you know, the 80s was the era of the yuppie and consumerism and big business and Wall Street and slick back hair and blue striped shirts with white cuffs and collars, which is a look I have never enjoyed. Whenever I see anyone dressed in a movie like that, where the collars and the cuffs are different colours, I always think, that person is a bad person, and they will do something bad and or get impaled on something. Because if you're a bad guy in a movie, you can't just get shot or, you know, die of a disease. You have to get impaled on a coat hanger or a statue that you see in the first scene in the movie, and then it comes back and it's like, he always loved that statue. That's the good guy looking at him impaled on the statue, saying something extremely insensitive. But I loved Family Ties. And I would have been, like, when it was on TV, I remember watching it when it was on TV. So I would have been, what, when it got big and popular in about 84. Because I remember in 1985, Back to the Future came out, and there's the famous thing of Back to the Future originally had Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly, because they really wanted Michael J. Fox, but they couldn't get Michael J. Fox because he was committed to doing Family Ties. But then they ended up shooting Back to the Future for a couple of weeks with Eric Stoltz, and it just wasn't working out. I think he was fine. He just was taking it very, very seriously, and it was supposed to be a silly kind of time travel-y movie about a young man who has the hots for his mom. Good, clean, family fun. So anyway, Michael J. Fox worked on both shows. Family Ties, I guess, because I remember seeing Back to the Future in the cinema and loving it. And I would have been about 8, I think. Yeah, I would have been 8, probably closer to 9, because back in those days, a movie would be released in America and then you'd have to wait 3 to 4 months for it to get over to the rest of the world, because that's just how things were back then. Everything didn't have to be released at once because of internet pirates. Yar, we'll be looking for an action comedy. Yar, this file be too small for me and me mateys. The pixelation will be too much for our eyes to take. Let's find a larger file. Yar. Oh, internet pirates are we, downloading torrents we be. We watch the movies, we eat the popcorn, we talk about our feelings. Yeah, so I don't know what I saw in the show. I think it was just the kind of structure of it, the sort of sitcom structure. But like Alex P. Keaton, Michael J. Fox's character now, who was the kind of breakout star of the show, he was loved and adored. And the funny thing is that he was a complete Republican, conservative, love money, very driven, very much a yuppie. Yuppie, of course, standing for Young Urban Professional Pie. So what they used to do is they used to round up young urban professionals, and how they would do that is they would grow fields of corn, really massive fields of corn, and that would attract the yuppies that were living in the woods, and they'd come in their pinstripe suits with the white collars and the white cuffs, and then they'd come out with big sticks, and they'd like be beating the corn and scare them into the middle, and then they'd catch them in nets, and they'd bring them back to Ape City. And then that one yuppie who was caught in the net suddenly said, "Get your stinking paws off my file effects, you damn dirty ape." And everyone's like, "Oh, the yuppies talk." But he was a yuppie, and he was beloved, and he would like pull the piss out of it. See, his parents in the show were kind of, children of the 60s. So they were kind of cool and groovy. They were professional people. They weren't like, living on a farm and calling their children River or Leaf or Starlight. But it was a case of the younger generation kind of pulling the piss out of the old values of the 1960s that had not come to pass. It's like when George Harrison went to San Francisco in 1967 because he'd heard, he said, I'd heard there was, love and peace and everyone was, having a great time, and I went there, and then when I went there, everyone was on acid, and, they were worshipping me like a god, and I'm like, I'm just George from Liverpool. Terrible George Harrison impression. I'll do Paul McCartney talking about George's experiences. So, that's what we did. We went, I went to San Francisco and, took acid and was playing guitar and everyone was treating me like a god. And I thought, that's a good job. Ringo, what have you got to say about it? I remember going to San Francisco and everyone was just on drugs. It was all dropouts, all young people with zits off their tits on acid. And I thought, I don't like this as I pulled into the station. Sorry, I went very northern there at the end. But it was this counterculture movement that existed before the internet. Like nowadays, people would just be changing their profile pictures to the flag of Vietnam. And, that'd be it. That's all the counterculturing that they would have done. Or change their profile picture to a joint or something, or a dove. And they'd be like, yeah, that'll show them. That'll show the establishment. Take that, establishment. But it is amazing. You would not have Alex P. Keaton as a character in a sitcom now. Well, I mean, you would, but he would be the butt of the jokes. He wouldn't be making the jokes. He wouldn't be the focus of the show, because the show was seen through Alex's eyes, and Alex was the guy you rooted for. But there was a drug episode, and that was a popular thing back in the day, where one of your characters would be on drugs. I think there was a Saved by the Bell episode where they were all on drugs. It was the origin of Screech, that they all took acid and they imagined Screech into existence. He was like the culmination of a bad acid trip, and then he just wouldn't go away. He was just stuck there, hanging around, because that's the thing about Screech. In the last episode of Saved by the Bell, they realised that Screech was a figment of their imaginations, that they just had a bad trip, and he just hung around like a space ghost that only they could see. No, I don't know. I didn't. I watched a little bit of Saved by the Bell, but not that much. But they had a drug episode. Biker Grove, man. Biker Grove, to the Canadian listeners. I know I've got a lot of Canadian listeners, or just foreign listeners in general, who didn't grow up on the programs of the BBC. Biker Grove was a show set in Newcastle, a sort of a teen drama. Biker Grove, man. There was, some drug episode where, I don't know what they were smoking weed or something, or sniffing glue, something like that. But in Family Ties, there was an episode where Michael J. Fox's character, Alex P. Keaton, the young conservative yuppie, he had some exams to do or something. I think he was in college or whatever, but he had exams to do and he needed to concentrate. So, and it was never explicitly said. That's the thing as well. Well, a lot of these shows, they kind of allude to what it is, or you just kind of have to kind of guess at what it is. And, because I hadn't got a clue what was going on, because I think I was too young to realise about speed. It was some sort of amphetamine, because it was keeping him awake and keeping him alert. And, he wasn't drinking coffee. And it was that thing of, I think his sister in the show discovered what he was doing. And he was like, it's okay, I just need to, I just need it for this one thing. And I'm just doing these exams, and then I'll be cool and groovy. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I have it under control, which is what every drug addict says. It's fine. I'm only doing it every day, all the time, forever. But I got a handle on it. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And then there's scenes where he's on the amphetamine or the speed, and he's rolling back and forth between desks and going, yeah, I got that right, and spinning around. And there was that shot of him on speed, spinning around in his chair, all delighted with himself because he remembered, how a V-shaped valley was formed or whatever was in his exams. And that was in the opening credits of the show for years, and so you have in the opening credits the main character on speed, just constantly. So guys, we are going to take a little commercial break now. I'm going to do some speed, and I'll be back after these short messages. Oh, I've got gas. Gas? You've got too much acid in your stomach. With Acid Remover from Johnson & Johnson, you can remove all of the acid in your stomach and say goodbye to indigestion and burping. Simply place a large syringe in your gullet and remove all of your acids. That's right, acids removed. And we're back. So, guys, I have been watching some stuff. Like everyone's been watching stuff. It's the sort of situation where, you know, you can't go to the cinema except to see classic movies. New movies, we don't know when they're going to be released. And myself and Cara have been watching The Sopranos because I haven't seen it in years and I kind of forget a lot of it. I mean, like, you know, I do remember a good bit of it, but, you know, with like 13 episodes per season, you know, there's a lot of it there. So we're nearly finished season 2. I think we're like 2 episodes away from the season 2 finale. And it's great. It's a really, really good show. Which, you know, I mean, hey, look, this is not a hot take. I'm not the first person to say that The Sopranos is great. Now, Cara is a little bit annoyed because I have been watching it so much. I've been going, hey, how you doing? I've been sort of lapsing into gangster talk all of the time, which she doesn't really appreciate. And I can understand that. It's annoying. I'm annoying. But it's a fucking great show because it has everything. You know, it has drama, it has a lot of comedy, it has thrills, violence, sex, and unexpected twists. Really shocking stuff, especially in the last season. There's a couple of episodes where you're literally like, "Whoa, I did not expect that to happen," and I am shocked by it. And it's kind of, I mean, Game of Thrones is, and I know some people who will not watch Game of Thrones because it's a fantasy, because it's got ice monsters and dragons, and, you know, I haven't seen any of it. So these are just things I've picked up. Maybe not ice monsters, but ice men, abominable snowmen. There's a fantasy element to it that is completely off-putting to a lot of people. Like, they won't watch it because it's not grounded in reality. And the nice thing about The Sopranos is that it kind of has a fantasy element in that it's set in the mafia world, but it's real because the mafia is a real thing. But the mafia has always been this kind of fantasy world. Like in Goodfellas, which is obviously something that The Sopranos owes a debt to because it shares some actors from Goodfellas. You know, they mention Goodfellas. They also, like Syl, throughout the series, keeps doing that. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. From The Godfather Part 3. So they're aware of gangster movies. It's got this kind of postmodern gangster thing to it. And it's a fantasy world because it's not the real world. And there's a sort of an element of you're kind of living vicariously through these characters. And you'd love to be Tony Soprano to a certain extent. You know, you'd love to have the power and the influence and just to do whatever you want, take whatever you want. Tony is, an evil man. And I guess to a lot of people, Tony Soprano was the sort of beginning of the proliferation of bad white men as heroes, like Walter White in Breaking Bad being the ultimate example. But I mean, the whole notion of that show was taking a simple chemistry teacher and turning him into a drug lord. and Mad Men. It was another one. And of course, Mad Men, which was created by one of the writers of The Sopranos. And that was, again, from the perspective of Don Draper, who is a man who is not all he seems. He's, in fact, the genius of Mad Men, well, you know, for me anyway, was the fact that here's a man who is, maybe spoiler alert for Mad Men if you haven't seen Mad Men, because I was kind of going to spoil something, but I think it's something that happens in the first season. Okay, I won't spoil it. I'll just say that Don Draper is a man who works in the advertising industry, and he puts forward this idealized version of himself, and it's not entirely true, and a lot about him is not entirely true, and that's the kind of that's the basis of the show. So there is that thing of, do you root for Tony? And you do root for Tony. He's the lead in the show, and you want him to succeed even though he's a bad man. But the beauty of The Sopranos, unlike, say, a gangster movie, which is kind of 2 hours and done, is that you see how the lifestyle affects not only Tony, but his wife Carmela, and his kids, Meadow and Tony Jr. and AJ. And it's interesting. It's really unexpected and interesting, and in some ways kind of mundane as well, which is just kind of adds to the realism of it. But it's a great show, and it's a great thing to be rewatching. I remember, and it's one of those things where in a time of crisis, you go back to the things that you love to watch. It's comfort food, you know, and kind of, I remember, God, a couple of years ago when I was, depressed and heartbroken, I would watch The Great British Bake Off. I watched it kind of, just to kind of have it on, but also it's just a nice show where people are baking nice things and they're all very supportive. And then, you know, at the end of the episode, they're crying because, not just because they don't get to continue their baking journey, but that they have to leave their baking friends that they've made over the course of the journey. And there was one thing I watched that I haven't watched in a long time, and it's something that is so quaint and twee nowadays, and that's Star Trek The Next Generation. Now, please don't run away. Please don't turn off. I'm just going to talk for just a minute about Star Trek The Next Generation. It is a simpler show for a simpler time. When you compare it to the new Star Trek Picard show that's on, well, it's on Amazon Prime. I watched the first episode of it, and that was enough for me. It's nonsensical. It's full of violence, because these days you can't spend a shitload of money on a science fiction show where people sit in a room and work out moral dilemmas amongst themselves. No one would watch that. But that's the beauty of Star Trek The Next Generation. It had these kind of standalone episodes, so you don't have to watch a whole season. There's not like an overarching thing. It's episodic. And there's not a lot of episodic, high quality, high budget television these days. Everything has, an overarching plot. And don't get me wrong, there was an overarching plot in the seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation, but it also had these standalone episodes that you can watch. So guys, that's enough talk about fucking Star Trek The Next Generation and The Sopranos, which is something that a lot of people have seen. Look, if you've never watched The Sopranos, definitely watch it. If you've never watched Star Trek The Next Generation, and you're like, Star Trek, I don't care about that sort of stuff, I would say give it a go, because, look, it's an ancient show at this stage. Like, the first episode was 1987, So it's a little bit twee, and the first season of it, they had a lot of the writers from the original series writing on it, so it kind of is a little bit old-fashionedy and a little bit twee, but it's pretty good. Heck, it's great. But another show that I think is pretty good that I know some people have been enjoying is Love Notes, which I discovered quite by accident. It was sent into me by an independent producer, Anthony St. Clement, and I was looking for content for the show, and he sent in this radio soap that he had produced all by himself, and it's turned into a hit. Now, last week we had the season finale of Love Notes. Now, it will be returning, but in a slightly different form, and I'm pleased to say I have Anthony St. Clement here in the studio to talk about what's next for him and what's next for Love Notes, if indeed there is going to be any more Love Notes. I hope so. So thank you so much for joining me in the studio, Anthony. Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. It's nice to be out and about. Wow, you sound just like the character you play in the show, Tony, and your name is Anthony. Yeah. The name is Anthony, but of course, in the show, to avoid confusion, on set, I go by Tony. So when I'm in character on the show, I insist that everyone call me Tony. But when I'm out and about, wearing me shorts, doing me shopping Lidl, people can call me Anthony. I really, really enjoy Love Notes. It's very, very surprising a lot of the time. I don't expect the twists and turns to twist and turn the way they do. Thank you very much. I mean, that's the way the show was designed and the way I thought of it, because for me, the genesis of Love Notes was I was in New Orleans. Oh yeah, well, I mean, there's a town for jazz if ever there was one. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, New Orleans, aka Jazz Town, as the locals call it. Do the locals call it that? The ones that I met definitely called it Jazz Town, and I called it Jazz Town because I was there, and I didn't want to offend the locals. But there's jazz everywhere. You go around the corner, there's jazz. You lift up a rock, and there's a lad playing a trumpet underneath that rock. That's just, it's riddled with jazz. Absolutely riddled. Like a kind of musical disease. Yeah, exactly like that. So I was in New Orleans. I was, checking out the jazz scene. And I thought to myself, Anthony, do you know what? There's never been a soap opera set in a jazz club. And that is a crying shame. Yeah, I've never actually heard of a jazz club soap opera. Even though really just the first episode of it is set in a jazz club. And then the rest of it is set in a haunted fun fair. Yeah, the haunted fun fair. Because that was another thing I was thinking. So I was there and I was thinking, Jesus. Because, New Orleans is famously haunted. One of the most haunted cities in all of the world. And I was staying in a hotel that had the ghost of a jazz player. Oh, now I see so that's where you got the idea for Miles Davis. Well, I was thinking, because I'd had a few drinks, I was thinking, Jesus, can you imagine if this wasn't a hotel, but it was a fun fair, but then it was still haunted? And then I went, wait a minute, fun fair? Haunted? Love Notes. Don't you mean haunted fun fair? Yeah, haunted fun fair. And I just came up with it on the spot. And then I thought, who would be inhabiting this place, this haunted fun fair? And then, of course, I thought of, a witch. And that's amazing that you actually came up with that character of Cara the Witch, because I don't know if you know this, but my wife-to-be is called Cara, and I had my suspicions that she was possibly a witch. That's a crazy coincidence there. But yeah, I never realised that. Yeah. She's I mean, I don't think she is, but I mean, she's got a pointy hat and she's got a cauldron. A cauldron, which is it's like a Swedish slow cooker. A Swedish slow cooker. Yeah, like you can do your pulled porks or your beef brisket in it. Oh yeah, like your slow cooked meats. You mean so just peels away, just falls away from the bone. Yeah, it's really handy. But that's a mad coincidence. Yeah, it's a crazy coincidence, and I mean, that's why I have a disclaimer where all events depicted in Love Notes, all characters are fictional characters. Any resemblance is merely coincidental. So, I mean, I've never met your lovely wife-to-be, but, I'm sure it's just something that's in the zeitgeist. It's out there, and I'm plucking it out. People love witches, and there's not enough witches with Irish names. That's my thing. So that's where it came from. It was like, we need more representation for the Irish witches, because a lot of the time you just don't get it. It's Eastern Europeans or whatever, and it's time to readdress the balance. Yeah, I don't think people are as concerned about witch representation as maybe you think they are. Oh, no, I'm pretty sure they care a lot. I mean, it's the business of the artist to give the people not only what they want, but what they don't know that they want, that they think they want, but they actually, when they get it, they go, this is what I want, even though I had no idea it existed or that I even cared about it up to this point. But now that it's here, I'm like, yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, that's a very good summation of just art in general, I guess, Anthony. And I can call you Anthony. Yeah, my friends call me Anthony. And your character in the show is Tony. Tony, yeah. But your actual name is Anthony St. Clement. Yeah, well, that's my stage name. For years I went as Tony. I was christened Tony. You weren't christened Anthony. No, christened Tony. And I was gigging. I was doing small parts in a theatre company. We were doing classic movies, condensed. So we did the Godfather trilogy in 90 minutes, which was just a lot of running around and shouting and murdering. It was action-packed, and a lot of grabbing lads by the head and like kissing them on the lips and going, "You broke my heart. You broke my heart, Frodo." No, it's not. It's Fredo. You broke it, Frodo. No, I think you're confusing Lord of the Rings and The Godfather there. Different trilogies. Oh yeah, we did a crossover of Lord of the Rings and The Godfather. Oh, sorry. So it was an actual... Yeah, we called it The Godfather of the Rings. Right, and I played Michael Corleone of Rivendell. Right, okay, that's a weird one. So it was like a fantasy gangster thing. I was just talking about that earlier on with The Sopranos being a fantasy gangster thing. It was a mishmash of things that people enjoyed because, our philosophy at the Sandwich Theatre Company. Theatre Company? Yeah. We called it the Sandwich Theatre Company because we were basically taking a whole load of things that people enjoyed and mushing them all together in between two pieces of bread, just like a sandwich. So we do crossovers. We do The Godfather crossed with Lord of the Rings, The Godfather of the Rings. We did a crossover of Jaws and Toy Story called Jaws Story. Yeah. It was about a shark who was a toy. So he could only be a shark when people were not around. So he just didn't kill anyone. That was a weird one now. I wasn't too into that myself now. I thought that was a bit existential. It was just basically a toy shark bemoaning his life and reflecting on existence and the very nature of life itself. It was a little bit philosophical for me. I like a good plot, a bit of a shootout, a little bit of nudity, and a big crying speech at the end. A big crying speech. Yeah, I always think the best dramas end with the main character in tears, giving an earnest speech, kind of roaring at the top of his lungs. Okay, yeah, I suppose that's an extreme bit of drama. Oh yeah, look, if you're going to a play or you're watching a show or you're listening to something, you want it to be as dramatic as possible. And what's more dramatic than the main character in tears, screaming his throat out? Yeah, I guess that's reasonably dramatic, but there can be drama in quiet moments as well. Was there any kind of low-key sort of ones that you did? No, they were all pretty big productions now, I think. But the problem with the group is we kind of hit a ceiling because we had all these ambitious crossovers, and then we did E.T. Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. E.T. Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Cuckoo's Nest, yeah. It was a crossover of E.T. the Extraterrestrial with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So it was E.T. crashed to Earth, but instead of befriending the young boy and dying, coming back to life and going back to space to his mates, he crashes into a mental asylum. And then he has a struggle between him and a nurse, and his friend dies. But in our version, when Billy dies, kills himself. Spoilers for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Billy kills himself and E.T. brings him back to life. And it's a happy ending. But to see the issue sounds pretty grim. Grim? What are you talking about? No, it's not grim. It's life affirming. That's a happy ending. The issue we had when we staged E.T. Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is that a lot of people would bring their kids to it, thinking, oh, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Kids love that kind of thing. They love the movie. It's heartwarming. It's a little bit sad, but then it's all right in the end because he lived and he goes back into space to see his pals. And that's what they were expecting. And that's what we gave them. Now, admittedly, up to, a large majority of the movie is the group therapy sessions. It's tense. And there is a suicide in it that we did, very graphic. We did it as realistic as possible. Because if you watch the movie, Billy kills himself, but you don't see him doing it. And I said, we've got to see it. That's the essence of the drama there, if we've got to see it. But, it's more about how Jack Nicholson's character, McMurphy, reacts to the suicide. Yeah, but in our version, I think, drama is best viewed through your eyes, not through your imagination. And we didn't want people to be going, because it might have been confusing. People might be thinking, oh, Jesus, was he murdered? And, that's why we had that. I gave the actor playing Billy in E.T. Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest the line, here I go, killing myself, just so people would realise what was going on, that they didn't think he was just scratching his arms. Yeah, it seems a little bit insensitive, potentially. No. It would be insensitive not to depict the act. You need to see it and you need to deal with it. And, but that was the thing where a lot of people left the theatre at that point. In disgust. One woman threw up because, we used a lot of real blood and we had it lying around. And then, and under the hot stage lights, that blood tends to stink. So some people couldn't take the stink of the real cow's blood that we got from the butcher for every performance. And, it would stain the stage as well. It's very hard to clean that off. And people just couldn't take it. And they didn't hang around for the end of it, where E.T. brings Billy back to life. and everything's happy again. They just, because, before that happens, there's like 20 minutes of E.T., and we had a young lady playing E.T. She was very small, so she was perfect for the role. And she was in the suit. We made the suit out of leather, and we got googly eyes from a doll for the eyes, and it looked pretty good. And so Billy dies, and then there's 20 minutes of E.T. screaming in grief and like rubbing the blood into his face, and it was, real drama. And then he goes, I'll just use me special alien powers, and I'll bring him back from the dead. And he did. But, of course, people had left disgusted by that point. So, they didn't get the full picture. You got to see the full picture. I mean, if you don't see the end of it, then it doesn't make any sense. You've got to see it in context. That's the thing about art. It has to be seen in context. So the context there would be, don't worry if someone commits realistic suicide in front of you, because an alien will come along and bring him back to life again. Yeah, that's it, yeah. So Anthony St. Clement, is that French? I think so, yeah. So that's, again, that's a stage name. Yeah, that's not my real name. There are very few St. Clements in the Liberties in Dublin. Maybe there are, I don't know, but I'm definitely not related to them anyway, that's for sure. And so you've been working on a new series, which I'm very excited about. First off, I want to say thank you for Love Notes. It's proven to be very popular. Oh yeah, it's one of the most popular shows I've ever made, and you're very humble about your success with Love Notes. Yeah, it's been sold to over 3 countries now at this stage. Azerbaijan is playing it. It's the number 2 rated soap opera in all of Albania at the moment. Number 2, what's number 1? Number 1 is a soap opera about goat herders. Goat herders, yeah. It's very popular in Albania. One Man and His Goat is the top-rated show. And look, if you have goats in your show in Albania, it's a guaranteed hit in the ratings. Yeah. It's just, everyone loves goats there for some reason. I've just never been able to organically have a goat in the plot of Love Notes. It just didn't make sense. But a witch and the possible ghost of Miles Davis. Yeah, but a goat would have been, if there was a goat there as well, you would have had people saying, well, geez, that's a bit much. Yeah, maybe, but I don't know, it could be sort of a dash of realism. Yeah, but a dash of realism, but come on, where the hell, that's not realistic. Why not? Because people would be saying, where the hell did a goat come from? What the hell is a goat doing in a jazz club? It just, yeah, come on. It's like bricks and cheese. It's like what? Bricks and cheese. They don't go together. Bricks and cheese. Yeah. Have you ever seen anyone eating bricks and cheese? No, I can't say that I have. Well, there you go. Anthony St. Clement, thank you so much for coming in. And I believe you have a little treat for us. I do have a little treat. And I'm not talking about the jelly babies that you've brought in. You brought in a massive bag of jelly babies. Yeah, 1 kilogram of jelly babies. See, I get them wholesale from a lad who makes them in his kitchen. He makes jelly babies in his kitchen. Yeah, they're really nice. They're a bit chewy, bit chalky, weird aftertaste, and they're smaller than regular jelly babies, but they give you a great old buzz. Are you sure they're jelly babies? Oh yeah, they've got the shape, so that's what it is. Yeah, but it's also the sugary jelly. First, they're not very jelly. They're kind of like refreshers. Yeah, or love hearts. Yeah, love hearts. That kind of consistency. Well, look, you have a bag of them. He gives them to me for nothing. Well, that's very generous of him. It is. So what's the special treat that you have besides the jelly babies? Oh, yes, the special treat I have for you, I have a new show coming up. And I've basically gone very ambitious with this. Love Notes was merely the beginning. But this is a completely new show, completely different show. And it's a science fiction show. Oh, good, because I was just talking about my love of Star Trek The Next Generation. Oh, with the Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Yeah, I love that show. Great show. Now, it's very different to Star Trek in that, it's set in space, but that's where the similarities end. Okay, and what's the name of the show? It's called Space Notes. Space Notes from the makers of Love Notes, a.k.a. me. All right, so, and are you going to be producing episodes of this? Oh, it's all done, yeah. I have a little trailer for you here now. I hope you enjoy it, and I'm hoping to get it broadcast on your show, if that's... Oh, yeah, sure. Agreeable to you. It is. Great. I'd love to have it on. Really? Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So, yeah, I mean, look, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope the listeners enjoy it. And I gave you the clip there. I have it here, yeah. So I'm just going to play this clip. And so check it out, folks. This is Anthony St. Clement's new opus from the maker of Love Notes. Here is Space Notes. So that's 2 space cokes, a space beer, and a space sandwich. All right, do you want anything else? No, we're fine for everything else, thanks. All right, I'll get those for you now in 1 second. How are you, Tara? Jesus. Peter, what are you doing here? Well, I just got out of space prison, so I thought I'd come over here on the first space shuttle and see what was going on planet Mars. I can't believe you're here, in the old space jazz club that you used to own. Listen, Terry's around. You don't want to anger Terry. Why, what's he going to do? Shoot me with his space gun? Yeah, he loves that gun. Look, I'm only here to pick up my space trumpet, and then I'll be on my way. Your space trumpet? Yeah, it's in the space pack. Go in and get the hell out of here before Terry sees you. Well. Peter, what are you doing here? Oh, too late. Terry, how you doing? I just got out of space prison. Thought I'd come back to the old Space Jazz Club and see what's going on here in space. Well, it's my club now. Yeah, I know. I'm just here for my space trumpet. That's all I want. Listen, I'm listening. When I left Earth to come here to planet Mars to set up a jazz club, I didn't think you'd be coming after me. Terry, relax. I'm not coming after you. I don't care. The bygones are gone by. Yeah, well, they better be. 'Cause you know what they say. What's that, Terry? In space, no one can hear you play the trumpet. Oh, yeah? Well, we'll see about that. Oh, will we? We will. So, there it is. That was Space Notes. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, it seems very similar. Well, I mean, it's set in space, so it's completely different to Love Notes. I mean, it is called Space Notes. It does have notes in the title. Well, yeah, but that's just because it's set in a jazz club. But the jazz club is on Mars. It's not on Earth. So it's totally different. I mean, if you were to compare the two, you would be a madman. So you're calling me a madman? No, I'm just saying if you were to try and compare the two and say that they're similar, then, that's like saying Star Wars is the same as Indiana Jones. And it's not, because one's set in space and one's set in Earth. Okay, well, I mean, I suppose on that logic, the Anthony St. Clement logic, yeah, well, it makes sense to me. Well, yeah, no, that's the whole thing. So, Anthony, thank you for coming on. It's been great having you on. Look forward to Space Notes. Oh, yeah, it's very exciting. There's aliens, there's blasters, there's all kinds of things. There's space ghosts. Space ghosts. Yeah, oh, spoiler alert. Okay, well, we look forward to that. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Salmon Skins, thank you so much for listening. This is the end of the podcast. If you've listened this far, thank you for listening. And if you want to give me a review, that would help me out immensely. If you don't, that's fine. I don't care. I'm just glad that you listened. You give me a follow on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to become a patron of Edwin Salmon of Knowledge, you can get extra content that's waiting for you right now on the Edwin Salmon of Knowledge Patreon page. Look it up, check it out. 3 ducats a month and it can all be yours. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye. See ya. Stay now, baby, if you've got to go away. I don't want you to go away. Won't you do the opposite of that? Stay now, that's it, that's the word I was looking for. Oh, don't leave me alone like this. Don't say it's the final kiss. I won't just stay another, so stay now, go over there now.